The following video is for record purposes. This video in its entirety will cover everything that I personally have in my preferences. When I say my preferences, it is in regards to the templates for creating my characters, my screenshots, my background parallaxes, my coding methods, and etc. A good indication of my different style would be the option screen. When you see an option screen in someone else's M.U.G.E.N program, it always has a weird black box behind the text. There are tricks and methods with the layering you can utilize to get rid of it. This is just the most minute of things that I've noticed. My M.U.G.E.N program runs at 60 FPS. I play on a 4,000 pixel and or 5,000 pixel resolution screen. So it gives me basically the most optimal of spriting techniques, memory usage. I am very efficient, as you guys will see. First and foremost, I would do a 1-player versus 2-player. For this demonstration of my preferences, I will pick Cloud. Cloud is the furthest in progress, and he is what I consider to be my basic character. For the stage, we will be utilizing M.U.G.E.N. M.U.G.E.N is one of my very first stages, so I'm using it for this. For these portraits, they're asymmetrical. This is programming that is not used in M.U.G.E.N today. As you can see, there are a plethora of different intros for each of my characters. The most outstanding thing that you will notice is that Cloud Strife is 100% asymmetrical. Asymmetrical means if you split the character down the middle, both sides of the character will not be alike. My style of asymmetrical character coding is 100%. Opposing to everyone else's. Most people who integrate asymmetrical coding, they only do very small or unnoticeable changes, such as if my character were on the right side of the opponent, they would do a different move. Well, that's not enough for me. In my case, I have made my characters asymmetrical to the point of being 3D. I now have a third dimension. Whenever I switch sides with my character, you will notice in fact that these are not two different characters. These are actually the same character. They just have twice as many sprites and twice the complexity of coding. Aside from that, you will notice the resolution from my sprites. These are true HD sprites. They range up into 2,000 pixels per frame, and I think it takes advantage fully of M.U.G.E.N.'s 1.1's zoom function. Aside from the spriting and the asymmetrical coding, I've also integrated different styles of layering. You'll notice for his stance animation, he has a gleam, he has a gleam on his sword and also a gleam on his pauldron. Those are two different sets of layers. Aside from that, for his stance animation, you'll notice in time his breathing actually changes. If you stay still or stagnant for too long, the character will just completely stop moving. Keep in mind, these characters are asymmetrical, which means twice as many sprites and twice the animations. Now that we have covered the regular stances, the layering, the asymmetrical aspect, including the portraits, you will notice that I heavily utilize layering for my backgrounds too. Aside from that, there's a different type of programming and or coding that I invented and added myself. This programming is called head tracking. Head tracking is basically dependent on where your character is. If your character is above the opponent, then the opponent will effectively look up at the character. This is programming that is not utilized in M.U.G.E.N today. It's not just simple head tracking either. The head tracking is based on X distance and or the distance the opponent is from your character. Therefore, if a character is crouching down and you are looking at the opponent, if he is too far out, of course the character won't look down. Aside from that, for the head tracking, when the character is above the opponent, you can actually be a little further out and he will still look up. But like any vision, if the character is too far, he will not need to head track. Aside from these major alterations and things that I prefer in my characters, and these are must-haves for any of my projects, I've also integrated battle damage. Now I will proceed to dwindle this character's life away. I will attempt to chip this character's life until it's 50%. Once it is 50%, you will notice a drastic change in his stance animations. Again, this is programming and or coding that most M.U.G.E.N creators today do not utilize. And honestly, it baffles me. This character is roughly 50% in life. Now I'm going to slowly chip this character's life away until he gets into the new stance. There you are. Now he is effectively hurt. No longer do I have to stare at the life bar every 2 seconds to check and see where the opponent is and or if I am winning. If my character is standing straight up, looking proud and strong, then I know that I am in better condition. Keep in mind, because my work is asymmetrical as a whole, whenever you switch sides of the character, you get the benefit of 2 different sets of animations. For the battle damage, it is not restricted to 50% life. There are various different stages that the character goes into, depending on the character's amount of life that remains. I will show you guys another example of a battle stance. This battle stance is drastically different from the one I've just shown you, so it requires me to chip away a lot more life. I think this is a safe amount of damage. You will notice the character's life is dwindled down to roughly 25%. When he's down to 25%, he proceeds to crouch and or slouch over even harder than he was before. He looks way more worn. Again, these characters are asymmetrical. Because of the asymmetrical programming, you get the benefit of 2 different sets of animations. This is all that I can recover, or rather recall from my memory, regarding my different coding styles that I personally invented myself. Now I'll be covering the minute and or the minor coding things that I always integrate into all of my work. These are what I call my M.U.G.E.N must-haves. First and foremost for my must-haves is a super jump. Every character has a basic jump. Well, my character has a super jump integrated too. The super jump, I believe, was introduced in earlier games such as Marvel vs. Capcom and a plethora of different related titles. Aside from a super jump function, you'll notice the character has 2 sets of walk animations, but that's not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is the run animation. What's so odd about the run animation, you ask? Well, having a run animation and 2 different sets of dash animations is actually a rare occurrence in a M.U.G.E.N character. Most coders and creators avoid making the programming so complex, and that is another thing that baffles me. You'll notice for the character's ground dash, he slightly turns his head towards the screen, but for his air dash, his entire body is facing the opponent. This is just one of the rare examples of how complex my coding and animations are. For instance, this is a basic jump. For the jump back, if you watch the animation and or the angling of his sword, you'll notice that he holds his weapon differently. Also for the jump forward, he flails his body towards the opponent. Minor things like this are actually often ignored by M.U.G.E.N creators. And believe me guys, this is only the tip of the iceberg. I've covered all of my asymmetrical aspects of my coding. I've also covered the high resolution of my spriting. And I've also shown you my basic must-haves for each one of my characters. Now I will show you something that is what I call my personal preference. This personal preference is just a thing that I do for myself that most other creators don't even bother to integrate. And this personal preference is my move list. As you can see, when you press the taunt button, if you wait for a few seconds, the move list will pop up in the background. What's important about my move list, or what's outstanding about it, is it doesn't pause the game. I always hate it when I'm fighting someone and that person forgets how to do a move and they freaking press start and stop me mid-attack. Well, now that is not an issue. Also, on the subject of taunts, he has this basic taunt, and he has what I call a rare taunt, where basically on occasion he'll just blurt out random stuff. It's basically a nice way of randomizing the taunt so that you can hear the character saying various different lines. Okay, we covered the movements, the spriting. I think that's basically everything I wanted to go over. Actually, another of the minute things that stands out with my coding is my attack set. This is often not integrated in most people's work too, and it's something that I rarely see in a character that is not ripped from another game. And that is the utilization of 2 sets of attacks. For instance, this is a light punch. Every character has this basic light punch. Well, the thing that is weird about my character is if my character is really close to the opponent, he switches his light punch to a different variation. This has been integrated into all of my characters' attacks. I need you all to keep in mind these are asymmetrical characters. They are 100% asymmetrical, which means 2 different sets of attacks. These 2 different sets of attacks are dependent on the side the character is on. Again, the luxury of seeing more beautiful animations. Okay. Attacks, sprites, animations. Is that it? Is that finally it? Heck no, that's not it. Guys, there's a ton of things that I could show you regarding my coding, but honestly I can't remember it all. It's just so much complexity to my work. For you guys out there who are subscribed, how you guys doing? I hope you're having a beautiful day. Find $1 on the street, you deserve it. For the people who aren't subscribed and that's watching this video, what's up? For my friend, I know you watching this, fam. What's up, bro? We gotta hang out later, man. Beat shit up. In future videos, I'll be showing you guys more side scroll work. I'll cover my RPG a little more in depth and etc. I'll give you guys more content. Right now, my focus is getting that Guts complete. Keep in mind that Guts, his resolution is 3 times the resolution of this Cloud Strife, and I'm basically trying to experiment with some of his animations. That's all I have for you guys. Everybody be safe.